Hello, 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 and thank you so much for joining us here on We Are Soccer Central. My name's Robert Kerr, host of the program as always, returning from a little bit of a hiatus. Summer soccer and some illness got the best of me, but I did stockpile quite a bit of content during the summer club season, so I'm excited to present that over the coming weeks on my personal social platforms, the We Are Soccer Michigan, and here on the We Are Soccer YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in to these programs. I'll be sure to do the like and subscribe and all that stuff. While I've been consumed calling games on the network, there's been a lot of great interviews collected, so I'm excited to share those in the coming weeks. So we turn the page now as we're in August 2024 to college soccer. And we got a few collegiate related pieces on the way. We're going to start it all off with Western Michigan Broncos head coach Chad Wiseman, as they seem to have added even more weapons coming off the back of back-to-back conference champions. So D1 powerhouse on the rise in Kalamazoo. I've got head coach Chad Wiseman on the program here on We Are Soccer Central. Welcome back here on We Are Soccer Central, coming back from the summer soccer season hiatus. And I'm glad to be joined by a very special guest going into his 12th season at the reins of the Western Michigan Broncos. Coming into the 2024 season off of two conference championships, the hottest team in Michigan collegiate soccer, Western Michigan Broncos head coach Chad Wiseman joins me on the program. How you doing, Coach Chad?
Doing great. Summer goes too quick, but thanks for having me, Robert, and I'm happy to talk about our program today and what the 2024 season looks like.
Yeah, we are in August 2024. Before we head into the thick of things, what does the summer look for a college soccer coach?
Well, I mean, it definitely some time for leisure, right? Time to spend with your family, get away a little bit from maybe Kalamazoo and Western Michigan, uh, whatever attracts you, what you like to do in those types of spaces. And we like to go up to our cabin up north, spend some time in northern Michigan, and we've done that. And I think also summer's about, kind of watching some of your players compete, and whether that's the USL2 flat platforms or other summer leagues, and seeing how they develop and how they work under other coaches, and watching them from a different perspective, I think is refreshing. And then I think you can coach them better when they come back to Kalamazoo in the fall as well. So there's a little bit of that. And then recruiting, right? There's some great showcases throughout the summer that you got to make yourself available for. In today's era, I think you can go recruit every single weekend if you want to. I think you got to pick the events that make the most sense for you and your program. And I think we do a good job of that here at Western Michigan. So that's kind of what my summers consisted of.
You said checking players out with their summer soccer teams. How much do coaches, or how much do you weigh that experience? I know some people kind of shrug it off that it's kind of an exercise in staying in shape, or maybe the levels can go up and down depending on what team or league you're playing. And how much do you take those performances into mind heading into a season?
Well, I think first and foremost, it varies the level and what each individual is going to do in the summer based off of where they're at academically, right? And do they have an internship somewhere in a different city? And then you try to find a team that would work for that individual. Maybe some of them are getting called into, MLS camps to train with their second team for a few days. It's a case by case, player by player type of situation, but I value it. I mean, I think in today's era of college soccer, the development is a year-round process, and there are some breaks in there, but those breaks aren't that long. And the players that come to Western Michigan value that, and our players play for some tremendous summer league coaches, right? That number one look after our guys, but number two can elevate them and develop them to another level that when they come back to Kalamazoo, they can bring those things that they've learned, the confidence that they have gained, and apply it to what our team's going to look like in the fall of 2024.
So I introduced you as the most successful coach in Western Michigan history, and you're going into your 12th year. Would you have thought when you started those years ago that you'd be coming into a season off the back of two league championships?
Well, we're a pretty competitive bunch over here in Kalamazoo. When I was appointed in this position 12 years ago, we had high aspirations for where we wanted to take the program. And I think first and foremost, that needed to start in the recruiting process. And I think if you look over the course of the 12 years, we've been kind of building that. We haven't taken steps forward and then steps back. And then you look at maybe the course of the last 5 years, I think, we're where we want to be, which is competing for championships, advancing in NCAA tournaments, give ourselves a chance to do that each and every year. But I think the credit needs to go to the guys that we've been able to bring into our program. I mean, we've been able to bring student athletes here that compete at a level both in the classroom and on the field, where maybe no coach in Western history has been able to do that before. I think part of that is there's more soccer being played at the youth level than ever before in the United States, and there's an unbelievable amount of great players out there. You look at the state of Michigan; we're very lucky that the state of Michigan produces great youth soccer players every single year, and that's on many different playing platforms, and we utilize all those platforms here at Western Michigan. But I think probably more than anything, I'm proud of the well balanced and what our student athletes look like in our program. I'll give you an example. Dylan Singh and Charlie Sharp have been well documented from the past, but and they're both playing with MLS franchise now. But last fall, there's only 2 Scholar Player of the Years that are awarded in college soccer. One is through United Soccer Coaches, and the other one's through college sports communicators. And for the first time in men's soccer history, Western Michigan won them both with 2 different players, right?
Wow.
And so I think that speaks pretty high of those 2 young men. But the work that we're doing collectively, both in the classroom, in our community, and certainly on the field, and we aspire to try to bring some of those guys here. And both those guys were Michigan born and raised players and recruited right off of their club teams that weren't MLS Next teams, right? So we certainly value those players too. But I think that's a pretty unique thing that they did. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, player identification seems to have been a big part of your success, bringing in a ton of Michigan players and not necessarily the ones from those MLS Next academies. And it's been a fun summer of tracking all these guys from the last season or two, level up through MLS Next pro teams. And there's even been a couple players making MLS starts this summer.
Yeah, we had Charlie Sharp and Jalen Shannon both make their MLS debuts for Chicago Fire in Toronto. That's a special moment for those 2 young men. It's a special moment for our program, for their families. Just very, very proud of them. They're very deserving of that. And not to take away from some of the players that are playing at MLS Pro and USL 1 for a little bit with Will Perkins, and then getting loaned out to an MLS franchise. So we're just really, really proud of those guys, and I think they're very deserving of where they're going with the game. I think there's a lot more to come for all of them.
It's definitely leveled up since I was at Western Michigan 20 something years ago. We weren't talking about following players up into the pros so much. So that's quite the shift, and a credit to you and the program. Speaking of players, you've added a lot of depth. You're kind of going strength on strength. There's quite a few players went to pro, as we just discussed, but you've brought in 5 more very experienced players for the 24 season.
Yeah. So I mean, at Western Michigan, we kind of live by these words. We don't rebuild, we reload, right? And in our vision, there's 3 different ways to reload your roster. And you spoke about it. And 7 guys of our starting lineup last year signed professional contracts, and an 8th guy in Carson Hodgins got drafted in the MLS, and Montreal sent him back, right? So we're certainly happy to have him for another year. But how do you reload? I think it starts within your roster. you know, when those guys graduate or those guys leave early for the pro ranks in December, you have the spring term to work with your roster. And I think you got to have guys develop. And what I mean by that is, you know, some guys in our roster might have been sitting behind some pretty talented players in the fall. Those players move on. Are some of those guys ready to step into a bigger role? And we thought going into the spring term, we had probably 5 or 6 that were capable. And we come out of it, you got guys like Christian Shannon, Jalen Shannon's little brother, who we redshirted. He had an unbelievable summer for Midwest, leading them into the playoffs, Midwest United, that is, and USL2. And great spring for us. Look for big things from him. And Connor Burkett and Roni Selemani, two guys that have been within our roster for a few years, but they look to be able to step up and take a much bigger role. I think that's phase 1 of reloading. Phase 2 of reloading, I think, is bringing in true freshmen, right? We brought in 5 freshmen this year, all hail from the state of Michigan, right? And I think anytime you have a freshman class, you're going to have some guys that need time to develop more, and some guys that will be ready right away. And we look at guys like Jordan Klein, Liam Smith, and Gabe Villagomez, all guys that competed in USL2 franchises this summer, right? And really got their taste to play against some of the best college soccer players. And we expect those 3 guys to have an immediate impact on our roster and fight for playing time from day one. And then the third phase that I think gets a lot of press these days is the transfer portal, right? And you know, I think our roots have stayed the same in recruiting. I think in the transfer portal world, we've probably have a bigger reach these days. And what I mean by that is you might have some players that are at, you know, an NAIA level that now, you know, aspire to compete at the Division I. And we certainly scooped a couple of those guys. When you look at DeWart Ramos, you know, he won an NAIA national championship. He's a big 6'3" Portuguese center back. We expect him to have an impact. You know, we brought in Colin Welsh from Memphis, who's played in 2 NCAA tournament seasons with them, and he's got 1 year of eligibility. And he's been with Sporting Kansas City from a training environment for many years now. We think he's probably going to be one of the best goalkeepers in the entire nation. You know, and you can kind of go on and on with some of the transfers we brought in, but basically what I'm saying is, you know, guys reach out to us and want to be part of our culture, part of our program at this point, right? And I think when you're looking at the recruiting world, you got to know what you need. And look at a guy like Asher Barnes from Niagara, you know, the captain there for 2 years, and you know, goal scoring player for them. For us, somebody who's probably going to sit a little deeper in the outside back position, but we certainly value those leadership traits, and that he's going to be able to bring 4 years of college experience with him to us for his COVID year, grad season, if you will. We've done pretty good in that space. I think another player that's going to really turn some heads is Owen Smith, and we should be familiar with him in the state of Michigan because he's been at Oakland for the last 4 years, and certainly he's performed well there. But I think he has different aspirations of what he wants to do here with Bronco Nation, and all signs point towards he's going to be pretty special. You know, maybe playing alongside the Hodgins brothers and facilitating some of our front runners, and then, you know, maybe the last piece to that, Grayson Mercer from Michigan State. You know, he's a distinguished scholar out of the Big Ten. I don't think that Missouri Valley or Mid-American Conference teams too often in any sport are bringing distinguished scholars into their program out of the Big Ten, right? And Grayson's a fine player, great young man. And his work rate, his engine kind of aligns with the type of things we like to do with our front line. And we're very hopeful he's going to come in and score some goals. Obviously, we graduated a lot of goals. It's been well documented throughout college soccer. Dylan Sang, Charlie Sharp, but with those guys exiting, there's other opportunities for guys to step up.
With the change in players and kind of the talent level rising in the squad, has the playing style developed with that, or do you kind of have something set that you've found some success with and are continuing with?
Well, I mean, we've changed a little bit over my 10 years, the head coach. And one thing that hasn't changed is we bring guys in that, you know, hate losing more than they like winning, right? And if we can continue to have that mentality, I think we'll be all right. However, we decide to change the X's and O's, but generally speaking, I think we recruit to the a system that we want to play. And then when we get all the players together here in another week, they'll tell us if we can play that way or if we need to tweak it a little bit.
I got a question for you. Hopefully, I don't take you by surprise. I've been asked myself a few times, and I don't have this answer by people trying to get into soccer. And this question has come up this summer more than any. But is the name, image, likeness factor for players playing any factor in college soccer or at Western?
Yeah, NIL. I think it's a trickle down effect. I mean, obviously, it's it's in the news. We talk about the football, the basketballs of the world, and when we think about D1, even women's volleyball and gymnastics have done a great job of it too. I mean, some of the best NLI athletes, female athletes, right? And, for us, I think at the men's soccer world, I think in the Power Four, I think there's a little bit more going on. In our world, there's a few dollars here and there that alumni get behind. Maybe it's more of they make a partnership with a local business. Next thing you know, the team's getting free haircuts because they tweeted something out. We've brought a company in house now, Atlantis, that's going to work with our athletes. I think we're ahead in the NLI space when we talk about maybe Missouri Valley schools or certainly MAC schools with the resources we have for our student athletes. And some will really dive in and utilize that, and others not so much with an interest level. But I mean, if you're not thinking that it's going to be a game changer moving forward, I think you're looking at it wrong. It's going to continue to get bigger and bigger, and we need to adapt and work with it the best that we can.
At the very least, in the here and now, obviously, it's going to come and become a bigger piece moving forward. But in the here and now, does that make you less nervous about just like eligibility of people like accepting things, and you don't have to be so careful about like player day to day of what they accept or don't?
Well, I mean, from a coaching perspective, at least the NIL space, I mean, that's all got to be documented between the athlete and the business of the person, right? The coach is not involved with that. So maybe that comes in-house, maybe that doesn't. Right now, it's not. So from where I sit, and just let those guys continue to do their thing. We got some pretty bright people in our program, as I already said it. So some of them are pretty good in the entrepreneur space and have a lot of ambitions in that space. And so maybe that'll grow even starting this semester, right, when we get all these athletes on campus. But I'm not too concerned with it. I just continue to educate myself in that space and continue to move forward.
Back to the field, we talked about the two back-to-back conference championships last year, a deep run in the NCAA tournament. But another thing to note is Western Michigan Broncos men's soccer undefeated streak against in-state opponents. How long is that? And are you going to have any matchups to keep that streak going this year in 2024?
Yeah, so it's a record that the boys are very, very proud of, right? And each and every year we strive to be the best team in the state of Michigan. And I think that they've shown that. We haven't lost a game in the state of Michigan since 2018, right? So that's quite some time, right? But we recruit here. Maybe we recruit a little bit differently than some of the other institutions. But we're winning recruiting battles too. I think we value a different type of player than maybe some of the other schools. But yeah, we got one on there. We played Detroit this year. The other schools weren't available to play us this year. So you can look at our schedule. We got some powerhouses in there, including the first three games. I mean, we played Vermont, New Hampshire, both teams that made it to the Sweet 16 last year, right? And then the third game of the year is against Akron. So if you know college soccer, those are going to be three doozies. But we'll continue to strive to be the best in the state of Michigan, right? And make postseason runs to the best of our ability. We're not worried about what other programs have to say about us. We know what we do, and we know who we are, and we'll continue to strive forward.
Oh, so no big Sparty or Wolverines. What an unlucky set of circumstances for that not to happen for them. But some big names on the Broncos schedule this fall. With success in 22 and 23 as far as conference championships and a deep run in NCAA tournament last year. Went to penalty shootouts against Notre Dame, a whisker away from advancing. What are the expectations for 2024?
Well, it's a great question, right? I think the program's at a level right now where we expect to compete for multiple championships this year, both the regular season and the postseason in the Valley, right? And we've built a schedule to give us two opportunities to make the NCAA tournament, whether that's the AQ out of the conference or an at-large. And we've done both over the last 6 years. And then, give ourselves the best opportunity to maybe host an NCAA tournament game and advance forward, right? Like, we've done that 2 of our last 3 NCAA tournament runs, right? And this last year, bringing Green Bay to town and, being able to play on your home site in the NCAA tournament is special. But, we have to carve out our own little notch with this team. And what I mean by that is to be able to compete at our level, it demands what it demands. There are no shortcuts, right? And the guys that come into our program right now know that. It's been articulated to them over and over and over. And you have to come in with a type of workmanlike attitude, a team first attitude. And then hopefully, you're able to accomplish a lot of the things that we've accomplished at the end of the season. But, we're 33, 4, and 6 in the last 2 years, right? Like, we won 3 championships in the last 2 years, 2 different conferences, might I add. So I mean, we have some really talented players here, right? And we continue to bring in talented players here. And our aspirations are high, right? I don't think the program has ever had higher aspirations. I mean, there's no time to step back, right? We don't say, we feel sorry for ourselves. There's not a single team out there in Division I men's soccer that's going to feel sorry one single bit for guys that we may have graduated or that have moved on, right? And we're going to get everybody's best shot. And that's what we want. And we look forward to playing those games this fall.
Well, Coach Wiseman, thank you so much for spending some time here on your off season as you work towards the 2024 fall season. You've brought together some of Michigan's top talent, and you've got Western Michigan into a position to be one of the rising programs in college soccer. So congratulations on that and all the best moving forward. And thank you so much for joining us here on We Are Soccer.
All right. Thanks for having me. Go Broncos.
Likewise. Thank you so much to my guest, head coach of the Western Michigan Broncos, Chad Wiseman. Always great to speak with him. He's got such a great motivating personality and demeanor in conversations. I could have run through a brick wall after that conversation. Thank you, listener, for tuning in. Like I said at the top of the show, a lot of great stuff coming out. And one more club event. As you know, I'm heavily involved in Oakland County FC. And we have one of my favorite games of the summer calendar ahead. This weekend, we play the supporters versus staff game of Oakland County. So the fans get to take on owners and the interns. And it is the Tim Ponser Memorial Cup. The creator of the turn or the exhibition game. We sadly lost him back in 2021. So we play the game in his honor, and I can't wait to have some fun with my Oakland County FC friends and family at the weekend. So hopefully everybody is enjoying their summer so far, and plenty to take in before the fall season comes around, just around the corner. So until next time, everybody, thank you again, and please enjoy your soccer.